we can jump 2 steps ahead. Yeah, one more, thank you. We are a global wellness company, and our vision is to create a healthier, happy everyday life through the power of hemp and plant-based products. And our purpose, very simply, is changing lives very naturally. And we produce CBD products, hemp-derived CBD products, skincare products, and hemp foods here in Australia. We have been in the hemp scene and CBD for a very long time, over 2 decades, and pride ourselves as being a pioneer in that space. Next slide, please. And why do we embrace hemp so much? Why is the heartland of our business hemp? Hemp is a wonderful plant. Every single part of the hemp plant can be used. It's fast growing, matures in 90 days, has numerous growing cycles. It's a perfect carbon capture, captures approximately 10 times more CO2 than pine trees, would take, by the way, 20 years to mature. It's extremely sustainable and very drought pest resistant. That means it requires very little water. It's a superfood, a source of CBD that we produce, and it's been legalized as a food here in Australia only since 2017. So it's a real true powerhouse, extremely sustainable, and every part can be used in either nutraceuticals or food products. Next slide. We are a pioneer, as I mentioned before, and we have a truly global footprint. Having been in the business of CBD and hemp for over 20 years, we've established very early on our presence across the world. Americas arguably being our biggest part of the business, and what you see here is the 2020 revenue numbers. Over half of our revenues coming out of the Americas, where we have a team and production, sales, marketing, and distribution. About a third of our revenue comes from hemp foods here in Australia, a very established brand, the #1 hemp foods brand in Australia, and the rest is really made up of a global footprint of direct entities and partners across all parts of the world. Next slide. Only recently did we rename ourselves from Elixinol Global to Elixinol Wellness, and it's really a symbolic step in our rejuvenation. Over the course of the year and a half, and certainly since I joined in April, we really transitioned our business into a consumer goods wellness business that is a branded goods business focusing on high margin channels. Previously, we provided bulk services, private label services, and now we're really marking the transition into a consumer products business. And it's a business that strives to make a positive contribution to people's health, wellness, and the planet through the power of hemp. Next slide. This gives you a good snapshot of our financial achievements throughout the year 2020. And although revenues declined for a number of reasons, partly it was a very deliberate strategy. And you can see on the left-hand side, the gray areas are really our bulk and private label business. We exited this kind of business because, frankly, we are striving to become profitable, and those businesses, those parts of the business were not margin accretive to us. So we exited that part of the business and really focusing now our business on global e-commerce, retail business through our strong consumer brands. And throughout the last year in 2020, we reduced our annualized cost by over 45%. And on the back of our progress in rejuvenating the business, we had an extremely successful capital raise that left us with, at the end of the year, nearly $28 million of cash in the bank, and barely any debt, or hardly any debt. On the right hand side here, you see the development on our EBITDA position, and you can see how we were turning the business around by really taking the cost out and focusing on a much leaner cost base to drive revenue growth and profitable channels. Next slide. The last quarterly results that we published were obviously the March quarter. And look, unfortunately, COVID, particularly in our European and our US businesses, given us significant challenges. And we've seen that business recover and had a monthly growth profile, which you can see there, month over month, our growth starting to materialize again as we came out of the COVID period. Very importantly, we exited the quarter with a very strong margin accretion story and improvement. And you see on the bottom there how our group margin is now tracking at the 58% mark. I do believe there's upside to be had. And that's certainly the highest margin that we have been achieving over the recent 5 quarters, and really testament to us focusing on consumer product with strong IP, marketing our products in profitable channels. We've continued to tightly our cost control measures, Our cost is now in the quarter 52% down, whereas prior year in the same quarter 11% down versus the previous Q4 quarter. And we continue on our substantial cost out and reduction and efficiency program. At the same time, what we are really excited about is we're becoming a digital first company. And 36% of our group revenues in the quarter were already derived by high margin e-commerce channel revenues. And certainly that is something that we continue to be driving. We are invested heavily into new e-commerce capability, particularly in the US, which is driving great results. Next slide. What we are extremely proud of as a first entrant and pioneer in the industry, and these are some brand health figures from the US, comparing Elixinol against Charlotte's Web, arguably the biggest brand and market leader. And you can see there that our repurchase intention and overall satisfaction for Elixinol is continuously improving and now benchmark really with the leaders in the category. In terms of our product of effectiveness and packaging and pricing appeal, we are ranking consistently in the top 20. Now, top 20 might not sound too exciting, but keep in mind that there's about 3,000 brands in the US, and it's a very cluttered space. And we're taking a leadership position here, largely attributed to our quality products that are really highly efficacious. Next slide. Our marketing capability is constantly growing, and this is a next demonstration on how we market and bring ourselves to the consumer. We're positioning ourselves as a natural food brand with Elixinol, a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's all about wellness. It's all about nature, bringing you the best, to drive the best personal you and helping you on your wellness journey. Next slide. Our innovation capability is second to none, I would argue. Throughout the year, we've innovated across all business units, whether it's Hemp Foods Australia here, launching a new gold protein range to really drive the protein category into a new dimension of quality and efficacy. But also in our CBD space, we launched last year a new skincare range based on CBD and various new product formats across the entire global markets. And one thing to point out is that only in April last year, we relaunched our entire range, our entire Elixinol branded product range with a really fresh new packaging appeal that you see on the left-hand side, really talking to those consumers who are not only looking for CBD products, but nutraceutical products. And that's a big differentiator for us. We are actually creating products that are not only having CBD, but they also have vitamins, minerals, and other supplements to really create efficacious and highly effective product formulations. Next slide. As I mentioned before, digital is a huge focus for us, helps us a large part to drive our margin improvements. And here's a comparison against our US Hemp Foods Australia, here in Australia business, and the European business. And across all regions, we're seeing matrix really, and numbers improving very, very significantly with revenue growth in the high double digits, as we're becoming more and more sophisticated and reaching more and more consumers through our digital presence. We're enjoying a very high conversion rate in the US. It's actually tracking over 8% now, which is extraordinary, really, in the e-commerce space, and we're very proud of that. Next slide. The outlook for the CBD market in particular is very positive. Consumers are only just at the beginning of the CBD journey, and the forecast is really for the US CBD market to grow about 26% CAGR over the next years and 34% in the European market. Although regulation is quickly shifting and that creates some instability and a bit of confusion in the market, the trend certainly is through positive regulation, regulatory change, as the World Health Organization and the United Nations declared CBD as safe and downsscheduled it to be not a narcotic anymore. And this trend certainly is going to give us tailwinds, as regulation changes in all global markets to embrace CBD for all consumers. Next slide. I do like to spend a moment as well to acknowledge the recent announcement from this week that we're not closing the Canacare transaction. Just a reminder, this was a transaction where we signed an SPA on the 15th of March to acquire Germany's biggest CBD brand or retail CBD brand. We were due to pay an upfront consideration of 9 million euros and a scrip-based earnout of up to 15 million euros. but our closing due diligence over the last couple of weeks really showed a significant shift in market dynamic and an increased investment requirement that exceeded our risk appetite. And based on these dynamic changes, we entered into a mutual termination agreement with the sellers, and exited from that transaction. That really leaves us now with approximately $5.5 million of cash that otherwise would have been spent on the upfront consideration, integration work and working capital for this business, which we are now using to invest into our biggest markets, the US and into Australia. Next slide. I guess what's next, our short-term focus really certainly for the next 6 months is to continue our business transformation globally. That means in the US, we have a new leaner leadership team, much leaner cost. We're going to pursue a capital light model even more aggressively. Here in Australia, we're going to be investing against the hemp food segment. It's a growing category, and hemp foods Australia is doing extremely well, while we continue to invest into our digital capability and improving our margin through cost control, that we continuously optimizing our base on which we operate. Last slide, please. So really in summary, over the last year and a half, we've really transformed our business to what you see now, a new Elixinol Wellness, a consumer products business firmly anchored in the wellness space. We are having strong brands which are getting stronger in all global markets. It's a continued business transformation journey, which is showing great progress and results, with a digital strategy on its core, in its heartland to drive our profitability, and in a very strong financial position at the end of the quarter in March. We had a strong balance sheet with over $23 million cash and virtually debt-free. So it's a really, we are excited about the future, the work that we have done, but it's only just the start. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. $23 million worth of cash on a market cap of only 33 million. What is the plan with that? What is the plan for that cash?
Yeah, look, at the moment, our biggest markets are the US and the Australian market. And certainly we're going to be investing in driving the growth that we are seeing materializing out of those. And we're also looking for acquisition opportunities. Canacare not coming off Germany gives us a bit of room to explore. And we stated publicly that we're looking for M&A activity, particularly in the US, to really increase our scale and drive profitability really quickly in the CBD space or an adjacent space. So that's what we are really excited about using that cash now for.
And where do you actually manufacture? Is it all the products produced in Australia?
Hemp Foods Australia products are largely produced in Australia, yes, absolutely. And then our US products produced in the US, European products are all produced in Europe. They have to be for regulatory reasons, and so it's all in-market production, but it's largely outsourced in Europe. Here in Australia, we have our own production as well as in the US.
And the Canna Health acquisition that you considered, what's that telling us about the German market in terms of competition?
Look, particularly over the course of April, May, we saw some enormous transactions in that market. And one of them, for example, was a Sanity Group, which raised 35 million euros in a capital funding there, and is really aggressively moving into retail space. They're already a digital online lead brand. There was Curaleaf having a massive transaction in that market as well. So I think everybody's now seeing that Germany is a key growth market, and massive investment is coming into that market. And that will create increased competition and a higher cost to play. And simply, the fact that we are currently not profitable, striving to be profitable, our risk appetite, to enter a market that is increasingly getting hot, it's just not there when we have a good core business that we can drive growth from.
And the ultimate target market then is that the US?
Yeah, we have to win in the US and Australia. Those are absolute our priorities. We have a leadership position in those markets. We have a good team there. We have good products there. And really what we are focusing on getting our core engines humming. And that gives us then a bit of freedom to play. That's right.
And is the focus now, you've rebranded, is the focus kind of on creating a brand? Because if I thought of something in the hemp space, I can't name a brand. Is that the real value in terms of creating a brand as well as a product?
I absolutely believe. I think we have still a way to go, particularly here in Australia. We're actually known as Hemp Foods Australia, which is our manufacturing entity, and not as a consumer brand. Our consumer brand is actually Essential Hemp. And I would argue that we have an opportunity here, particularly in the next 12 months, to really get a stronger branding. A lot of the brands are retail only brands. So Woolworths has their own brands, Coles has their brand, and there is no strong leadership position at this stage. So I do believe absolutely consumers will relate to those natural plant-based food brands, and that's something that we will be investing against. Yes.